The Galactic Educational Consortium had strict protocols. Lesson 47B, titled Understanding Apex Predators, a Safety Module, was mandatory for all multi-species classrooms. The goal was simple: teach young aliens to recognize danger and maintain proper distance from predatory species. Ms. Lyra Dane stood at the front of her classroom aboard the orbital station Kepler-7, watching her students fidget nervously in their seats. The Vrelian children tucked their antenna stalks close to their heads, the Quilnari triplets huddled together, their crystalline bodies dimming with anxiety. Even young Toss, the usually boisterous Kryn juvenile, had stopped bouncing in his anti-gravity cradle. "Now, class," Lyra said gently, her voice carrying the warmth that had made her a favorite among non-human students. "Today we're going to learn about predator species. I know some of you are worried, but remember, knowledge removes fear." The door hissed open. Administrator Vexnar entered, his scales gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Behind him, 2 security officers carried a reinforced transport cage. Inside, something growled, low, rumbling. "Primal, Teacher Dane," Vexnar announced formally, per Consortium Regulation 7 Alpha 9. "We present Cub Vark of the Korth species for educational observation." The class erupted in gasps and squeaks. One Vrelian student dove under their desk. Lyra approached the cage calmly, crouching to examine its occupant. Cub Vark was barely 2 feet tall, covered in midnight black fur that bristled with aggression. His eyes, 6 of them arranged in 2 rows, glowed amber with territorial hostility. Razor-sharp claws scraped against the cage floor. His jaw, even in miniature form, displayed rows of serrated teeth designed to tear through reinforced hulls. "This," Vexnar continued, stepping back cautiously, "is a juvenile Korth predator. In adulthood, they reach 12 feet in height and are classified as threat level Omega. No species in the known galaxy approaches them willingly. Observe the claws, the teeth, the—" "He's terrified," Lyra interrupted quietly. The administrator's head fins flared in surprise. "Excuse me?" Lyra pointed to the cub's posture, body pressed against the far corner of the cage, tail wrapped protectively around himself. "Look at his breathing pattern. The pinned ears. He's not aggressive. He's scared. Teacher Dane, I must insist you maintain proper distance. The Korth are—" But Lyra was already inputting the release code on the cage control panel. The security officers jumped back, weapons half-drawn. "Ms. Dane," Vexnar's voice pitched high with alarm. The cage door swung open. Cub Vark's growl intensified, his 6 eyes locked on the room full of potential threats. His claws extended fully, each one gleaming like polished obsidian. Lyra sat down cross-legged on the floor, making herself smaller. She didn't look directly at the cub, a technique she'd learned from Earth's animal behaviorists. Instead, she gazed slightly to the side and began humming softly, an old lullaby her grandmother had taught her, something about stars and sailors and coming home. The cub's growling faltered. One ear twitched upward. "What is she doing?" A Quilnari student whispered. "Being human," another replied, though they couldn't explain what that meant. Lyra continued humming, her body language loose and unthreatening. She extended one hand, palm up, letting it rest on her knee. An invitation, not a demand. Cub Vark took one cautious step out of the cage. Then another. The security officers tensed, but Vexnar, fascinated despite himself, held up a hand to stop them. The cub circled Lyra at a distance, his 6 eyes analyzing, calculating. She could smell his fear musk, sharp and acidic. He was a baby, stolen from his pack for this demonstration, surrounded by strange smells and unfamiliar sounds. "It's okay," Lyra whispered, not moving. "It's okay, little one." Something in her tone, perhaps the universal frequency of maternal comfort that transcended species, made the cub pause. He tilted his head, studying this strange, furless biped who showed no fear. Then, with tentative steps that belied his predatory heritage, Cub Vark approached. He sniffed Lyra's extended hand, his breath hot against her skin. His claws retracted slightly. "That's it," she murmured. "See? Nothing to be afraid of." The classroom held its collective breath as the apex predator cub climbed into Lyra's lap. He circled once, twice, then curled up against her stomach. His growl transformed into something else, a rhythmic rumbling that sounded almost like, "Is he purring?" Toss asked in amazement. "The Korth don't purr," Vexnar said automatically. though his translator chip questioned the accuracy even as he spoke. But Cub Vark was definitely making a contented sound, his body relaxing as Lyra gently stroked his fur. Within minutes, the most dangerous juvenile predator in the known galaxy had fallen completely asleep in the human teacher's arms, his 6 eyes closed, his breathing deep and even. "This is unprecedented," Vexnar stammered. Lyra looked up at her students, many of whom had emerged from their hiding spots to stare in wonder. "Class, this is the real lesson. Yes, the Korth are powerful predators, but they're also living beings with feelings. Fear, loneliness, the need for comfort. These things don't disappear just because you have sharp teeth." A Vrelian student raised a tentacle hand timidly. "Teacher Dane, why did he trust you?" Lyra smiled, continuing to stroke the sleeping cub's fur. "Because I didn't see him as a monster first. I saw him as a frightened child who needed kindness." "But you're human," the student pressed. "Humans are death-worlders. Aren't you predators too?" "We are," Lyra admitted. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We hunted, we survived, we adapted. But we also learned something that many species forget. The strongest predators don't always need to show their teeth." Cub Vark shifted in his sleep, pressing closer to Lyra's warmth. One tiny paw rested against her arm, claws fully retracted, the picture of absolute trust. Vexnar watched, his bureaucratic mind struggling to process what his eyes witnessed. Every protocol, every safety measure, every assumption about apex predators and death-world species had just been quietly dismantled by a kindergarten teacher who'd simply chosen compassion over fear. "I'll need to file a report about this," he said. Weakly. "You do that," Lyra replied, her voice soft so as not to wake the cub. "And tell them that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our strength or our stubbornness. It's our ability to recognize ourselves in others, even those the galaxy tells us to fear." The lesson continued, but it wasn't the one the consortium had planned. As the students gathered in a careful circle around their teacher and the sleeping predator, they learned something far more valuable than how to identify danger. They learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is offer gentleness to a world that expects violence. And in the arms of a human teacher who refused to see monsters where there were only frightened children, Cub Vark slept peacefully for the first time since his capture, dreaming perhaps of a galaxy a little less afraid.